Billionaire tries to humiliate exit party and discovers two children. He never knew about the sound of piano music filled the small bookstore as Emily Mitchell practiced for her upcoming recital. Her fingers danced across the keys of the old upright piano tucked in the children's reading corner, while her twin brother Ethan sat nearby, solving advanced math problems. Their mother, Sarah Mitchell, was arranging new books on the shelves when she heard the music stop abruptly. "Mom!" Ethan's panicked voice cut through the silence. Sarah turned to see Emily slumped over the piano keys, her face pale. "Emily!" Sarah rushed to her daughter, her heart pounding. At 35, she'd already lost her husband Thomas 2 years ago. She couldn't bear the thought of losing her child too. "Call 911!" she shouted to Mrs. Henderson, a regular customer who was browsing nearby. Within minutes, the quiet bookstore was filled with the sound of sirens. As paramedics rushed Emily to the hospital, Sarah held Ethan's trembling hand in the back of the ambulance, praying history wouldn't repeat itself. Her son had the same mysterious heart condition, and watching Emily collapse brought back terrifying memories of Ethan's episodes. At the hospital, Dr. Martinez's face was grave as he examined Emily. "Mrs. Mitchell, your daughter's condition is worsening, just like her brother's. We need to run more tests, but this type of hereditary heart condition is rare. If we had the father's medical history..." Sarah's stomach tightened. She'd never told anyone except her late husband the truth about the twins' father. Their father... "He passed away," she lied, the words burning her throat. Back at the bookstore that evening, after Emily had been stabilized and sent home to rest, Sarah found an envelope that made her blood run cold. The official notice gave her 7 days to vacate the premises. The building had been sold, and the new owners wanted immediate possession. Sarah sank into her favorite reading chair, the one where she'd spent countless hours reading stories to children. The bookstore had been her dream, made possible by Thomas's life insurance money. Now, with mounting medical bills and dwindling savings, she was about to lose everything. "Mom?" Ethan's voice startled her. He was holding his school backpack, trying to hide something. "The kids at school..." He hesitated. "They were making fun of my secondhand uniform again. Called me the charity case who can't even afford new shoes." Sarah's heart broke. She pulled her son close, noticing the tear in his jacket that he'd tried to hide. "Those kids don't know how rich we are in the things that matter," she said. But her voice trembled. Outside the store window, a sleek black car pulled up. An elegant woman in designer clothes stepped out, discreetly taking photos with her phone. Sarah recognized her immediately. Victoria Richardson, wife of Maxwell Richardson III, one of the wealthiest men in Connecticut. But Victoria wasn't looking at the bookstore. Her eyes were fixed on the twins. Sarah's hands began to shake. After 10 years of keeping the secret, was her carefully constructed world about to fall apart? She thought of the box hidden in her closet at home, filled with newspaper clippings about Max's success, medical records showing the same rare heart condition that now threatened her children, and the project proposal that had saved Richardson Enterprises. Her project, the one Max had stolen. Emily's voice drifted from her bedroom upstairs where she was supposed to be resting. She was humming a melody, the same one Sarah had heard Max play at the company piano so many years ago. The same natural talent, the same passion for music. The store's bell chimed as the mail carrier delivered one last envelope. Sarah's heart nearly stopped when she saw the Richardson Enterprises logo. Inside was an invitation that would change everything. Emily had been selected to perform at the company's 15th anniversary celebration. Sarah watched Victoria's car pull away, knowing that the carefully constructed walls protecting her children were about to come crashing down. In just 7 days, she would either lose her bookstore or face the man who had forced her to flee 11 years ago, and who had no idea he had 2 brilliant children about to enter his life. Emily sat at the piano in her school's music room, preparing for the biggest performance of her young life. Her music teacher, Ms. Thompson, watched with growing concern as the girl's fingers trembled slightly over the keys. "Are you feeling all right, Emily?" Ms. Thompson asked, remembering the recent incident at the bookstore. "I'm fine," Emily insisted, though her face was paler than usual. "I have to practice. This performance at Richardson Enterprises could help save Mom's bookstore." Outside the music room, Victoria Richardson lingered in the shadows of the school hallway. She'd been following the twins' activities for weeks, and now she approached Ms. Thompson with an envelope thick with cash. "There must be more talented students for the anniversary performance," she suggested smoothly. But Ms. Thompson's response surprised her. "Actually, I knew Max, your husband, when he was Emily's age. He played exactly like her. Same natural talent, same passion." She handed the envelope back unopened. Meanwhile, at the public library, Ethan was preparing for his mathematics competition when he noticed a magazine featuring Max Richardson on the cover. He froze, staring at the man's familiar features, the same shaped eyes as his, the same slight dimple in the chin. As he read about Max's recent heart surgery, his own chest tightened uncomfortably. At the bookstore, Sarah received an unexpected visitor. James Carlton, a smooth-talking investor, expressed interest in buying her failing business. "It's a generous offer," he said, sliding a contract across the counter. "Especially given the recent allegations." "What allegations?" Sarah's voice shook as Carlton pulled up a just-published online article. Former Richardson Enterprises employee accused of corporate fraud. Her own younger face stared back at her from the screen. The store's bell chimed as Bradley Richardson, Victoria's 8-year-old son, wandered in, having slipped away from his nanny. He found himself drawn to Ethan's corner of math books, and soon the boys were excitedly discussing number theories, unaware of their connection. "You're really good at this," Bradley said, amazed by Ethan's quick solutions. "Everyone at my school thinks I'm weird for liking math." Their bonding was interrupted by Victoria bursting in, her face flushed with anger at finding her son there. As she dragged Bradley away, Sarah noticed how different he looked from both his parents, and how Victoria's hand trembled as she gripped her son's arm. That evening, Sarah found Emily practicing despite doctor's orders to rest. "Mom, why does playing the piano feel like remembering something I never learned?" Emily asked. "Like the music was always inside me?" Before Sarah could answer, Ethan rushed in with the magazine. "Mom, look! Mr. Richardson had the same heart surgery I might need. What are the chances?" Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I know everything about the twins. Take the buyout offer and leave town, or everyone learns your secrets, and Max's. You have until the anniversary party. V." Through the window, Sarah spotted Victoria's car again, but this time she wasn't alone. Eleanor Thompson, the elderly board member Sarah remembered from her days at Richardson Enterprises, sat in the passenger seat, her face troubled as she studied a thick folder in her lap. The final blow came when Carlton returned with revised paperwork. "Mrs. Richardson asked me to remind you. The article is just the beginning. Think of your children's reputation." Sarah watched her twins through tears, Emily at the piano, playing a piece that Max had composed in his youth, and Ethan puzzling over mathematical theories just like his father used to do. In 1 week, they would all come face to face at the anniversary party. Would Max recognize his own traits in these gifted children? Would Victoria execute whatever cruel plan she was developing? As she held the invitation in trembling hands, Sarah realized she was out of options. The bookstore's deadline, the twins' medical needs, and Victoria's threats left her no choice but to face the past she'd tried so hard to escape. What she didn't know was that Bradley had already begun to suspect his own mother's secrets, and he was keeping a detailed diary of everything he observed. Sarah's hands shook as she dialed Emily's music teacher. "I'm sorry, but Emily won't be performing at the Richardson event," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. But before she could finish, breaking news flashed across her phone. Maxwell Richardson III rushed to hospital during board meeting. Across town in the pristine halls of Richardson Enterprises, Max gripped his chest, his face contorted in pain. The same expression Ethan wore during his episodes. Victoria watched in horror as her carefully constructed world began to crack. "His heart condition," she whispered to herself, "just like those children." At Lincoln Middle School, Ethan sat in the nurse's office, recovering from his own cardiac episode during math class. Through the window, he spotted Bradley watching him with concern. The wealthy boy had been showing up everywhere lately, drawn to the twins in a way he couldn't explain. "You look just like my dad when he's sick," Bradley said quietly, slipping into the nurse's office. "I saw him on TV just now. He's in the hospital too." Before Ethan could respond, Victoria burst in. Her designer heels clicked against the linoleum as she grabbed Bradley's arm. But she froze when she saw Ethan's face, pale and drawn. From his episode, for a moment, naked fear flashed across her features. "You," she said to Ethan, her voice trembling. "Your mother. Tell her I need to speak with her. Today." Back at the bookstore, Sarah was organizing a children's reading circle, perhaps one of her last, when Victoria arrived. The elegant woman's perfect composure had cracked, her eyes wild with barely contained panic. "I know everything," Victoria hissed, pulling Sarah into the empty storage room. "The affair, the pregnancy, the twins. Did you think I wouldn't investigate when Emily's photo crossed my desk? She's his spitting image." Sarah's world spun. "How did you—" I had you investigated the moment that music teacher mentioned how much Emily plays like Max, Victoria cut in. But here's what you don't know. I have the power to destroy everything you've built. One word from me about your past fraud, and you'll never work in this state again. Victoria's threat hung in the air, but something in her eyes betrayed her own desperation. Take the buyout, leave town, disappear again, or I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of woman you really are. As if on cue, Sarah's phone buzzed with a hospital bill for Ethan's latest tests. The amount made her heart sink, more than she'd make in 3 months. Think about your children, Victoria pressed. Their reputation, their future. Max can't know about them. He can't ever know. The way Victoria's voice broke on those last words made Sarah look closer. She recognized the fear in the other woman's eyes. It was the same fear she'd lived with for 11 years. Victoria, Sarah said slowly, what are you really afraid of? What secret are you protecting? Before Victoria could respond, Emily's voice floated down from upstairs, practicing the piece for the anniversary party. The same melody Max had written years ago. Victoria's face went ghostly white. Stop her playing that song, she whispered. Max wrote that the summer you were together. If he hears her play it like him... Their confrontation was interrupted by a commotion outside. Bradley had returned, this time with a bloody nose. The kids at school, he sobbed. They said I don't look like Dad at all. That I must be... He stopped, seeing his mother's stricken face. Sarah watched as Victoria rushed to comfort Bradley, noting how different he looked from Max. Suddenly, Victoria's desperate attempts to keep Max away from the twins took on a new meaning. That evening, as Sarah helped Emily practice for the performance she hadn't had the heart to cancel, her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Meet me tomorrow. I have proof of everything. Max's heart condition, the true parentage, and the project they stole from you. It's time for the truth. Eleanor Thompson, board member. Sarah stared at her twins. Emily at the piano, playing Max's song with his gift, and Ethan reading about cardiac genetics with his father's focused expression. In 1 week, they would all be in the same room. No amount of threats from Victoria could stop what was coming. The truth had its own heartbeat, growing stronger by the day. The small coffee shop was nearly empty when Sarah arrived. In the corner booth, Eleanor Thompson sat with a thick manila envelope in front of her, her elegant posture betraying her exhaustion. As Sarah approached, she noticed how the older woman's hands trembled slightly. You look just like you did 11 years ago, Eleanor said softly. The day Max broke your heart and stole your future. Sarah sank into the booth. How do you know? Everything? Eleanor's smile was sad. Because I've been keeping records since the day you left. But first, there's something you need to know about me. She pulled out an old photograph. This is Max's father, and my mother. Sarah's eyes widened. You're Max's aunt, his father's secret child from a relationship he had before marriage. Nobody knows except Victoria, which is why she can't touch me. Eleanor's hands shook as she reached for her tea. But I'm running out of time to make things right. Terminal cancer. 6 months at best. Sarah watched in silence as Eleanor opened the envelope, spreading out documents across the table. The project that saved Richardson Enterprises? I have proof it was yours. Max's heart condition? Genetic records showing it matches Ethan's exactly. And this? She pulled out a stack of emails. Victoria's investigation into your children, and her own secret about Bradley. Why are you doing this? Sarah whispered. Because I watched my brother destroy lives with secrets, just like his son is doing. But mostly, Eleanor's voice caught, because those children deserve to know their father, and Max deserves to know his children before I... She stopped, touching her chest briefly. A text lit up Sarah's phone. A photo of Bradley and Ethan talking in the school library, sent by Victoria with the message. Last warning, leave town. She's desperate, Eleanor explained, because Bradley isn't Max's son. She had an affair years ago, and her biggest fear is Max discovering he has no biological children, just when he might find out he actually has 2. Sarah's mind raced. The anniversary party. Victoria knows Emily plays exactly like Max. One song and he'll know. He never forgot you, Sarah. The way you played his compositions. The way you solved problems no one else could. Eleanor's voice grew urgent. But there's more. The company's current success? It's all built on your project, the one they stole. With interest, it's worth millions now. The coffee shop door chimed. Bradley walked in, his face tear-stained. "Mrs. Thompson? Mom said you were sick. I followed you because..." He stopped, seeing Sarah. "Oh, you're Emily and Ethan's mom. They're the only ones who understand me at school." Eleanor reached for Bradley's hand. "Come here, dear. There's something you should know about family. It's not always about blood." As Bradley sat with them, Sarah noticed how he had none of Max's features, but his eyes held the same loneliness she often saw in her own children's faces. "I have all the proof here," Eleanor continued, her voice weaker. "But Sarah, we have to move quickly. My doctors..." She swayed slightly, gripping the table. "Mrs. Thompson?" Bradley's voice was scared. "I'm fine," she smiled, but Sarah saw the truth in her eyes. "Just tired." "But Sarah, you need these documents. When the truth comes out at the party." "What truth?" Bradley asked. "About why I don't look like Dad." Eleanor touched his cheek gently. "About why you're special just the way you are, and about 2 other children who need their father just as much as you do." Sarah looked at the documents, her hands shaking. Proof of her stolen work, evidence of Max's paternity, and Victoria's desperate attempts to hide multiple secrets. In just days, everything would change. "The anniversary party," Eleanor said firmly, despite her obvious fatigue. "It's time for all the secrets to end, for everyone's sake." She looked at Bradley with grandmother's eyes. "Sometimes the best families are the ones we build from broken pieces." As they left the coffee shop, Sarah holding the envelope that could change everything, Bradley whispered, "I've known for a while about me, about them. I'm good at solving puzzles, just like Ethan." Eleanor watched them go, touching the medical papers in her purse. Time was running out, but the truth had waited long enough. Sarah sat on Emily's bed, watching her daughter sleep. The sheet music for Max's composition lay scattered across the covers. The same song that would reveal everything at the anniversary party. Down the hall, she could hear Ethan mumbling equations in his sleep, just like his father used to do. "Kids," she said softly, gathering her courage. "There's something we need to talk about." Emily stirred first, her eyes fluttering open. Ethan appeared in the doorway, already alert despite the early hour. They were used to serious talk since Thomas died. "It's about your father," Sarah began, her voice trembling. "Not Thomas, but..." She stopped as Emily grabbed her chest suddenly, her face pale. "Emily!" Ethan rushed to his sister's side. "I'm okay," Emily insisted, but her voice was weak. "Just nervous about the performance." Sarah's phone buzzed. Another text from Victoria. "Last chance. The article about your fraud goes live tomorrow unless you decline the performance." As if on cue, Emily's phone lit up with a notification. Her piano competition page was flooded with anonymous comments accusing her of cheating in previous performances. The girl's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, they're saying I stole other people's music, that I'm a fraud." Sarah's heart clenched. Victoria was attacking her children now. Before she could respond, Ethan's tablet chimed. His scholarship application for the math program had been rejected due to inconsistencies in his documentation. "This doesn't make sense," he frowned. "My paperwork was perfect." The doorbell rang. Bradley stood there, his school uniform disheveled. "I heard what Mom did," he blurted out. "The comments about Emily, Ethan's scholarship. I found the emails on her computer. I'm so sorry." Sarah pulled him inside as a familiar black car drove past slowly. Bradley's eyes were red from crying. "She doesn't know I'm here, but I had to tell you. She's planning something worse for the party. Something that will hurt everyone." Upstairs, Emily started playing Max's song, the notes floating down like a reminder of what was at stake. Bradley's head snapped up. "That's Dad's music. The one he wrote before." He looked at Sarah with dawning understanding. "That's why Mom's so scared. That's why Emily plays just like him." Sarah's phone rang. "Eleanor." "Sarah, I'm in the hospital. It's happening faster than they thought. Whatever you decide, it has to be now. Victoria's already ordered the security team for the party." As Sarah hung up, she found her twins watching her. The resemblance to Max had never been stronger. Emily with his artistic soul, Ethan with his analytical mind, both with his determination. "Mom," Ethan said quietly, "I found something about genetic heart conditions. They're inherited, and Mr. Richardson just had the same surgery I might need." Emily touched the piano keys softly. "And this music, It's in my head, like a memory I never made. Mom, please. What aren't you telling us? Bradley spoke up, his voice small. I'm not really my dad's son. But they are, aren't they? That's what Mom's afraid of. Sarah looked at these 3 children, all carrying burdens too heavy for their young shoulders. Victoria's threats, Eleanor's failing health, Max's obliviousness. It was all coming to a head. Yes, she finally said. Max Richardson is your biological father. And at the party, I'm going to play his song, Emily said firmly, despite her pale face. And I'll find a way back into that math program, Ethan added, his jaw set just like Max's. Bradley squeezed Emily's hand. I'll help. Mom can't hurt you anymore. I won't let her. Sarah watched the 3 children, their faces set with determination. Victoria's carefully constructed walls were crumbling, and Eleanor's time was running out. In 3 days, they would all face each other at the party. Her phone buzzed one last time, a message from Eleanor in the hospital. The doctors say I might not make it to the party. The truth has to come out now, Sarah. For all of them. Looking at her children, Sarah made her decision. No more running. No more hiding. It was time for the truth, whatever the cost. The week before the anniversary party turned into a battlefield. Emily sat at the bookstore's piano, practicing with fierce determination despite the growing online attacks. Her fingers moved across the keys with perfect precision, playing Max's composition as if she'd known it all her life. They can say what they want, she declared, her chin raised defiantly. I know I didn't cheat. This music, it's part of me. Sarah watched her daughter, remembering how Max used to get the same look of intense concentration when he played. Outside, Victoria's car prowled past again, but this time Emily didn't flinch. At school, Ethan was diving deeper into his research about genetic heart conditions. During lunch break, he spread his findings on a library table, Bradley sitting next to him with a stolen copy of Max's medical records. Look, Ethan pointed excitedly. The pattern is exactly the same. The way the heart muscle. Children shouldn't be discussing such things. Victoria's sharp voice cut through the library's quiet. She stood there, designer suit impeccable, but her hands were shaking. Bradley, come with me, now. No, Mom. Bradley stood his ground. I know what you did to Ethan's scholarship, and Emily's competition. It has to stop. Victoria's carefully maintained composure cracked. You don't understand what's at stake. Her voice rose, drawing attention from other students. Realizing her mistake, she grabbed Bradley's arm, but he pulled away. I understand that you're scared, Bradley said quietly. I've known about me for a while. About them too. Dad deserves to know the truth. Back at the bookstore, Sarah received an unexpected visit from James Carlton, the investor working for Victoria. But this time, he seemed uncomfortable with his mission. Mrs. Richardson asked me to offer your employees significant bonuses to quit before the party, he admitted. She wants the store empty, failing. But he hesitated. My daughter loves your reading circles. I can't do this anymore. He handed Sarah a folder of Victoria's plans. Meanwhile, Eleanor was making calls from her hospital bed, her voice growing weaker but her determination stronger. The board needs to know everything, she told Sarah over the phone. I've gathered supporters. Victoria can't stop us all. Emily's piano practice was interrupted by a delivery. A stunning new dress for the performance with a note. From someone who believes in you, Eleanor. But mixed with the tissue paper was a USB drive containing footage of Max playing the same composition years ago. The similarity in their styles was undeniable. Mom, Emily called out, her voice trembling as she watched the video. How is this possible? It's exactly how I play it. Ethan burst in from school, excitement overriding his usual calm demeanor. Mom, I figured it out! I mapped our genetic markers against Mr. Richardson's public medical records. The probability of a random match is practically zero. We're definitely— Quiet! Sarah hushed him as Victoria walked into the store, this time with 2 men in suits. These gentlemen are from the competition board, Victoria announced, her smile razor sharp. They're here to investigate the cheating allegations against Emily. But before she could continue, Bradley rushed in behind her. Don't listen to her. I have proof she faked the complaints. All of them! Victoria's face went white. Bradley, you're grounded. Get in the car! No! Bradley stood next to Emily. Play the song, Emily. Play it right now. Show them you don't need to cheat. Emily sat at the piano, her back straight, Max's defiant expression on her young face. As her fingers touched the keys, Sarah saw Victoria's composure finally shatter. "Stop her!" Victoria cried. "That song. Max will know." But it was too late. Emily was playing. Each note perfect. Each phrase an echo of her father's style. The competition board members exchanged glances, clearly confused about why they were really there. Sarah's phone buzzed. A message from Eleanor. "I'm being moved to intensive care. Whatever happens at the party, the truth comes out now. Victoria can't hurt these children anymore." Looking at Emily playing her heart out, Bradley standing guard beside her, and Ethan clutching his genetic proof, Sarah knew Eleanor was right. The time for secrets was over. Victoria stormed out, but not before Sarah caught the fear in her eyes. In 3 days, they would all face each other at the party. 3 days until every carefully constructed lie would crumble. 3 days until Max would finally know the truth about all of his children. The twins he never knew, and the son he wrongly believed was his. The day before the anniversary party, the hospital corridors echoed with Eleanor's persistent cough as she shared her final instructions with Sarah. "Everything's in this envelope," she wheezed, her face pale against the white pillows. "The board members who'll support you, the proof of your project's theft, everything." Sarah gripped Eleanor's frail hand. "Save your strength. You need to be there tomorrow." "No time left to be gentle," Eleanor managed a weak smile. "Victoria's making her final move today. Be ready." As if summoned by Eleanor's warning, Sarah's phone lit up with a message from Victoria. "Sunset Cliff Restaurant, 2 p.m. Last chance to save your children's future." At the Richardson mansion, Bradley sat in his father's study, watching Max review his speech for tomorrow. The resemblance Bradley had once desperately searched for in the mirror now felt like a cruel joke. "Dad," Bradley started, his voice small. What if I told you Mom's been lying about something big?" Max looked up, distracted. "Not now, son. The party's tomorrow, and I need to finish this speech about family legacy." The irony made Bradley's heart ache. At Sunset Cliff, Victoria was already waiting when Sarah arrived. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide her desperation. $1 million, she said without preamble, sliding a check across the table. "Take it and disappear. Tonight." "It's too late, Victoria," Sarah replied quietly. "The children know." "Then, you've ruined everything!" Victoria's composure cracked. "Do you know what Max will do when he finds out about Bradley? About your twins? His whole image is built on family values. Maybe it's time for truth." "Truth?" Victoria laughed bitterly. "Here's truth. I've arranged for child services to investigate you. Anonymous tips about your children's mysterious medical conditions. Suggestions of negligence. How long can you fight that with your resources?" Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. "You wouldn't." "Try me. You have until midnight to take the money and go." Back at the bookstore, Emily's final rehearsal was interrupted by Bradley bursting in. "Mom's gone crazy," he gasped. "She's sending people to take you away." "I heard everything." Ethan looked up from his laptop. "Got it," he exclaimed. "I just found Mom's old emails to Dad about the pregnancy. They were hidden in Eleanor's archived accounts." Emily stopped playing. "Bradley, your mom just posted more stuff online about me cheating. But look what I found." She played a sequence from Max's composition. "This part, it's like a musical DNA test. No one could copy this style. It's in our blood." Sarah returned to find all 3 children huddled together, united against Victoria's threats. Her phone buzzed again. Eleanor was being rushed to intensive care. "The doctors say I might not make it to tomorrow," Eleanor whispered when Sarah called. "But I've sent copies of everything to trusted board members. Victoria can't stop it now." As evening fell, Victoria made one last desperate attempt. She showed up at the bookstore with tears streaming down her face. "Please," she begged Sarah. "You don't understand. I was young, alone. Max's father said he'd destroy me if Max found out Bradley wasn't his. I had to protect my baby." "By destroying mine?" Sarah asked quietly. Victoria's face hardened. "Fine. Then it all burns down tomorrow. Everyone loses." But as Victoria stormed out, she ran straight into Bradley, who'd been recording everything on his phone. "No more, Mom," he said, his voice shaking. "I sent copies to everyone. To Dad, to the board members, to Eleanor." Victoria's face went ashen. "Bradley, how could you?" "Because Emily and Ethan are my sister and brother. Real family doesn't hurt each other." That night, as Sarah helped Emily prepare her performance outfit, she received 2 final messages. First, from Eleanor. "It's happening faster than expected. If I don't make it tomorrow, know that the truth will still come out. All of it." Then, from Max himself. "Sarah, it's been 11 years. Why did you really leave? We need to talk before tomorrow's party. Bradley showed me some disturbing evidence about Victoria. And that song Emily's playing. I wrote it the summer we were together." Sarah looked at her sleeping children. Emily clutching her sheet music, Ethan surrounded by his genetic research, and Bradley curled up with them, finally part of a real family. Tomorrow would change everything. The truth would finally break free, carried on the notes of a song written by a father for the children he never knew he had. The Richardson mansion glittered under the evening lights as guests arrived for the anniversary party. Sarah stood at the entrance, her heart pounding, with Emily and Ethan beside her. Emily wore Eleanor's gift, a blue dress that matched the one Sarah had worn the night she first played Max's song. Ethan clutched his folder of genetic evidence, his face set with determination. "Remember," Sarah whispered to her children, "no matter what happens tonight, we're family," Emily finished, squeezing her brother's hand. "Always." Inside, Victoria was already orchestrating her final defense. Security guards were strategically placed, and she'd stationed loyal employees near every exit. But her perfectly planned evening began to unravel the moment Bradley broke away from his handlers and ran straight to the twins. "Dad's looking for you," he told Sarah, his voice urgent. "He's in the library. He's been reading my evidence all afternoon." Victoria appeared suddenly, grabbing Bradley's arm. "What have you done?" she hissed, but froze when she saw Emily. The girl was a mirror image of young Max, especially in that blue dress. The crowd parted as Eleanor was wheeled in by a nurse, against all medical advice. Her face was gray, but her eyes were sharp. "Victoria!" she called out, her voice carrying across the marble floor. "It's over. The board has everything." Victoria's grip on Bradley loosened. "You're supposed to be dying," she spat. "I am," Eleanor smiled serenely. "Which means I have nothing left to lose." The room hushed as Max appeared at the top of the grand staircase. He stopped mid-step when he saw Sarah, but his eyes quickly moved to Emily and Ethan. The color drained from his face. "That's impossible," he whispered, but Sarah saw the recognition in his eyes. Emily moved toward the grand piano that had been set up for her performance, the same piano where Max had composed his song 11 years ago. Victoria lunged forward to stop her, but Bradley stepped in her path. "No more, Mom," he said firmly. "Let the truth come out." The first notes of Max's composition filled the room. Emily played with her eyes closed, channeling a talent she'd inherited but never been taught. Max gripped the staircase railing, his knees weakening. "She plays exactly like you," Eleanor called out to him. "Just like you played it the summer Sarah was carrying your children." The crowd erupted in whispers. Victoria made one last desperate move, signaling the security guards, but the board members Eleanor had contacted stepped forward, blocking their path. "Max," Victoria pleaded, "don't listen to them. They're trying to destroy our family." "Family?" Bradley's voice rang out. "Tell him the truth about me, Mom. Tell him what you've been hiding for 10 years. Ethan chose that moment to approach Max, holding out his research. "Sir, I've mapped our genetic markers. The heart condition, it's a perfect match. The probability of coincidence is 1 in millions, Max finished, his voice shaking. He'd seen those same calculations in his own medical files. Sarah watched as Max stared at her children. Emily playing his song with his gift. Ethan explaining genetics with his precision. The truth was undeniable, written in their faces, their talents, their very DNA. Eleanor's nurse touched her patient's shoulder in warning. "Mrs. Thompson, your heart rate." "Just a little longer," Eleanor insisted, pulling out one final envelope. "Max, your father did this once. Chose pride over love, power over truth. Don't repeat his mistakes." Victoria saw her world crumbling. "Security, remove them all!" But Bradley had sent the evidence to every guest's phone. The security team stood still as phones began buzzing throughout the ballroom, revealing Victoria's decade of deception. Max descended the stairs slowly, drawn to the piano where Emily played the song he'd written during that long-ago summer of love. Each note was a reminder of what he'd lost, and what he'd just found. "Sarah," he said, his voice breaking, "why didn't you—" But before he could finish, Emily swayed at the piano, her face suddenly pale. At the same moment, Max clutched his chest. The same heart condition that connected father and daughter making its presence known. The storm was about to break. Eleanor's truth, Victoria's lies, and 11 years of secrets were all about to collide, with two children's hearts hanging in the balance. The grand ballroom fell silent as Max Richardson approached the podium, sweat beading on his forehead. The speech he'd prepared about family legacy and corporate values lay forgotten in his pocket as he stared at Emily, still seated at his piano, and Ethan, holding the genetic proof of their connection. "For 15 years, he began, his voice unsteady. "I've led this company through every storm. But tonight—" He loosened his tie, struggling to breathe. The same gesture Ethan made during his episodes. Victoria stood up, sensing her carefully constructed world falling apart. "Max, you need to rest. We can postpone." "Sit down, Victoria," Eleanor commanded from her wheelchair. Despite her weakened state, her voice carried authority. "Let the truth finally be heard." Max gripped the podium harder. 10 years ago, an employee left suddenly, accused of corporate theft. I let that lie stand. I let my father convince me it was necessary. His eyes found Sarah. But that employee had actually saved this company, with a brilliant strategy that— He stopped, touching his chest. Emily noticed his distress from the piano. "He's having an episode," she called out. "Like Ethan gets!" Ethan rushed forward with his research. "Look at the pattern, Mr. Richardson. Our heart conditions are identical. The genetic markers— Security!" Victoria shouted desperately. "Remove these children." But Bradley stepped forward. "No, Mom. Show everyone what you sent to Mrs. Mitchell yesterday. The threats about child services, the blackmail, everything." The crowd gasped as Bradley's recorded evidence played from multiple phones. Victoria's threats echoed through the ballroom, followed by her confession about Bradley's true parentage. Max staggered, clutching the podium. "Victoria, what have you done?" Eleanor wheeled herself forward. "The same thing your father did, Max. Choosing pride over love. But look at your children. Really look at them." Emily began playing again, her fingers finding the complex bridge passage that Max had written during that long-ago summer, the one he'd never published, never shared. Yet she played it perfectly, as if the music lived in her DNA. "That's impossible," Max whispered. "That part of the song? I never wrote it down." "Because you played it only once," Sarah spoke up. "The night you told me about your father's ultimatum. The night I tried to tell you I was pregnant." Max's legs buckled as the truth hit him. Emily's music, Ethan's brilliant mind, their shared heart condition— it was all undeniable. But as the realization dawned, his heart condition flared violently. "Dad!" Bradley rushed to him. "His heart! It's just like Emily's episodes." Emily swayed at the piano, her own heart racing with the stress. "Mom," she called weakly, "I don't feel—" In an instant, both Max and Emily collapsed. Father and daughter, connected by music, genes, and a dangerous heart condition, fell at the same moment. "Call an ambulance," Sarah screamed, running to Emily as Bradley held his father. Victoria stood frozen, her lies exposed. "I never meant— I was just trying to protect—" "Protect what?" Eleanor's voice cut through the chaos. "Your secrets? Your lies? Look what they've done to these children." The medical team rushed in as Ethan pulled out more papers. "The genetic testing shows we need the same treatment. The procedure that saved Mr. Richardson last year. Emily and I need it too." Max, barely conscious, reached for Emily's hand as the paramedics worked. "My father made me choose the company over love," he whispered. "I won't make the same mistake again." Sarah watched her daughter and Max being loaded onto stretchers, their shared heart condition forcing everyone to confront the truth. Eleanor's voice rose above the chaos. "The board has seen all the evidence. The stolen project, Victoria's threats, everything. It's time for healing. For everyone." As the ambulances raced toward the hospital, the truth had finally broken free. But would it cost 2 lives to bring this family together? The genetic bond between father and daughter, hidden for so long, now threatened to be their final connection. The hospital corridor buzzed with tension as doctors rushed between rooms. Max and Emily had been placed in adjacent cardiac units, their shared genetic condition requiring identical treatments. Sarah stood between their rooms, torn between her daughter and the man she'd once loved. Victoria paced frantically, her perfect facade crumbling. "This is all your fault!" she screamed at Sarah. "If you had just taken the money—" "Enough!" Eleanor's voice cut through, sharp despite her own medical equipment. She'd insisted on being brought to the same hospital. "Show them, Bradley. Show everyone what you found." Bradley, tears streaming down his face, pulled out his phone. I recorded everything, Dad. All of Mom's calls, her threats, her confessions, even... He choked back a sob. Even the truth about me. The phone played Victoria's voice. Of course he's not Max's son. I had to do something when I couldn't get pregnant. His father's business rival. I was desperate. Max, barely conscious in his bed, turned his head toward the sound. Bradley, son, I'm not your son, Bradley whispered, but I wish I were. You're a better father than my real one ever was. In the next room, Emily's heart monitor started beeping erratically. The same pattern, Ethan observed, his analytical mind working even through tears. Mr. Richardson, showed the same readings right before his last surgery. Eleanor motioned for her nurse to wheel her closer. Max, the surgery that saved you last year. These children need it too. It's time to be the father they deserve. Sarah clutched Emily's hand as doctors rushed in. She's crashing! Someone shouted. Through the window, she could see Max trying to get up, fighting against his own monitors. My daughter, he kept saying. Let me see my daughter. Victoria made one last desperate attempt. Think about the company's reputation. The scandal. The scandal? Eleanor's voice rose. You want scandal? Tell them about the project you stole from Sarah. The one that made billions for Richardson Enterprises. The attending physician looked up sharply. This girl needs immediate surgery. The same procedure Mr. Richardson had. But the specialist is in Boston. Get my helicopter, Max commanded, his CEO voice returning despite his condition. Get that specialist here. Now! Victoria crumpled into a chair. It's over, isn't it? Everything I built. You built it on lies, Bradley said quietly. While they built a real family, even without money or power. Eleanor pulled out her final piece of evidence, a letter from Max's father on his deathbed, confessing to forcing Max to abandon Sarah. He regretted it, Max. Don't make his mistakes. The helicopter's rotors could be heard approaching as Emily's condition stabilized slightly. The genetic link that had caused so much pain might now save her life. The procedure developed for Max's condition was her only hope. Through it all, Sarah noticed something extraordinary. Despite the chaos, the three children had formed an unbreakable bond. Bradley held Emily's hand while Ethan explained the medical procedures in his precise, calming way. They were already family, despite Victoria's lies and Max's absence. I never stopped loving you, Max said to Sarah as doctors prepared him for a transfer. Our children, they're incredible. Emily plays like an angel. Ethan's brilliant. They get that from you, Sarah whispered. They get their strength from you, he countered. You raised them alone, while I lived a lie. Victoria's composure finally shattered completely. I'll lose everything. The press, the board. You lost everything the moment you chose lies over love, Eleanor said. But her voice was gentle. But maybe, if you finally tell the truth, you can start to rebuild. The specialist arrived as Emily's monitors beeped urgently again. Like father, like daughter, the doctor observed, studying their identical symptoms. Good thing we know exactly how to treat this, thanks to Mr. Richardson's case. Sarah watched as they wheeled Emily towards surgery, followed immediately by Max. Their shared genes had revealed the truth, and now might save them both. Through the window, she could see Bradley and Ethan huddled together, two brothers united by something stronger than blood. Eleanor took Sarah's hand, her own hospital bracelet glinting. Family isn't about DNA or corporate legacies, she said softly. It's about love, truth, and forgiveness. Even Victoria might learn that eventually. As the surgery doors closed behind father and daughter, the truth had finally broken free. But would it lead to healing or heartbreak? The next few hours would determine not just their survival, but the future of a family built on secrets and lies, trying to find its way to love and truth. The sunrise filtered through the hospital windows as Emily opened her eyes for the first time after surgery. Sarah sat beside her, dark circles under her eyes from the sleepless night. In the next room, Max was also recovering, his first words upon waking being, "How is my daughter?" Bradley hadn't left the hospital, refusing to go home with Victoria. He sat in the waiting room with Ethan, both boys sharing their childhood stories, filling in the years they should have spent as brothers. He used to make me pretend to love business meetings, Bradley confided, but all I ever wanted was to write stories like the ones in your mom's bookstore. Ethan smiled. Maybe you can help run the children's reading program once Mom expands the store. Victoria appeared in the doorway, her designer outfit replaced by simple clothes, her face bare of makeup. She'd spent the night in the hospital chapel, confronting her choices. "Bradley," she said softly, "I'd like to take you home." "This is home," Bradley interrupted, holding Ethan's hand. "These are my brothers, my real family." Eleanor, who had refused to return to her own hospital room, watched the scene unfold from her wheelchair. Despite her doctor's protests, she was determined to see this through. "Victoria!" she called out. "Come here." When Victoria approached, Eleanor took her hand. "We all make mistakes protecting our children. The question is, are we brave enough to correct them?" In Emily's room, the young girl was already asking about the piano. "The doctors said the surgery fixed Dad's heart completely last year," she said hopefully. "Does that mean I can play again soon?" "Dad?" Sarah asked softly. Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Is it okay to call him that? I know Thomas was our dad too, but—" "Love multiplies. It doesn't divide," Sarah assured her. "Thomas would be happy knowing you have more love in your life, not less." Max, against doctor's orders, wheeled himself into Emily's room. "I heard someone inherited my stubborn streak about following medical advice," he said, attempting humor through his emotion. Emily's face lit up. "Dad, did you know Ethan solved your company's latest logistics problem while waiting during surgery? He said the algorithm was elementary." "Just like his father," Max smiled, then caught himself. "Sarah, I'm not trying to take Thomas's place." "You're not," she assured him. "You're filling your own place, the one that's been empty for 11 years. Victoria appeared in the doorway, Bradley and Ethan beside her. She looked smaller somehow, more human. "Max, Sarah, I've been talking with Eleanor. I'd like to enter therapy, and I want Bradley to live wherever makes him happiest." Bradley looked up in surprise. "Really, Mom? Really?" Victoria wiped a tear. "I've spent so long protecting lies. I forgot to protect what matters most, your happiness." Eleanor smiled weakly from her wheelchair. "Sometimes it takes losing everything to find what you really need." The doctor entered with Emily's test results. The surgery was a complete success. Just like her father, she's responding perfectly to the treatment. Must be in the genes. "Speaking of genes," Ethan piped up, "I've been researching musical ability inheritance patterns. Did you know?" "No science lectures until your sister's fully recovered," Sarah laughed. But Max was already leaning forward, eager to hear his son's research. A nurse appeared with forms for Sarah. "Ms. Mitchell, about the surgery costs." "Already taken care of," Max and Eleanor said simultaneously. "Actually," Eleanor added, "the board has calculated the current value of Sarah's stolen project. The settlement should more than cover expanding that lovely bookstore." Victoria stepped forward. "I'd like to help with that. Not with money, but maybe by finally doing something honest. If you'll let me." Sarah saw the genuine remorse in Victoria's eyes. The store could use someone who knows about business planning. Bradley's face lit up. "Does this mean I can help with the children's reading program? I've been writing my own stories." The room fell silent as Emily suddenly sat up straighter. "Dad, would you play that song with me when I'm better? The one you wrote? I think it needs to be a duet now." Max's eyes filled with tears. "I'd like that very much." He looked at Sarah. "If your mother agrees to help us compose a new ending." Through the window, the morning sun cast a warm glow over the unlikely family gathering. Eleanor watched with satisfaction as years of lies and pain began transforming into something new. Something true. Victoria held Bradley as he excitedly discussed book ideas with his brothers. Sarah watched Max bond with their children, 11 years of absence dissolving in moments of genuine connection. And through it all, Eleanor's presence reminded them that it's never too late for truth to heal what lies have broken. 6 months after the fateful night that changed everything, the newly renovated Mitchell Richardson Cultural Center was buzzing with excitement. The small bookstore had transformed into a sprawling haven of arts and learning, its walls now echoing with children's laughter and music. Emily sat at the grand piano, a gift from her father, preparing for the center's opening ceremony. Her fingers, strong and sure after her recovery, danced across the keys as she practiced the duet she and Max had composed together. Beside her, Bradley read from his first children's book to a group of mesmerized kids. "And then the lonely little bear found his real family," Bradley read, his voice confident. They didn't all look the same or live in the same cave, but their hearts beat as one. Victoria watched from the doorway, a tissue clutched in her hand. 6 months of therapy had softened her edges, replaced her designer suits with casual elegance. She caught Sarah's eye and smiled, a genuine expression that would have been impossible half a year ago. The foundation board meeting went well, Victoria said, approaching Sarah. The scholarship program for gifted children is fully funded. Eleanor would have been so proud. They both glanced at Eleanor's portrait, prominently displayed above the main staircase. She had lived just long enough to see the truth set everyone free, passing peacefully 2 months after the surgery. Her last words had been, "Love wins. It always does." Ethan burst into the room, waving a paper excitedly. "Dad, the patent office approved our joint application, the new heart monitoring system we designed." He stopped, still getting used to calling Max Dad so naturally. Max appeared behind him, his own eyes bright with pride. "That's my boy. Though I still think your improvements to the original design were better than mine." The front door chimed as the first guests began arriving for the ceremony. Board members, local families, and supporters filled the space, many of them carrying books to donate to the center's free library program. "Ready for your performance?" Max asked Emily, straightening his tie nervously. Emily smiled. "Ready, Dad. Bradley helped me add words to the music. It's a real song now." Sarah watched her daughter stand confidently at the piano, remembering the frightened girl who had collapsed in this same room half a year ago. Now Emily was strong, her heart healed, her family complete. "Distinguished guests," Max addressed the crowd, his arm around Sarah's waist. "Today we celebrate not just the opening of a cultural center, but the power of truth and love to heal even the deepest wounds." Victoria stepped forward, Bradley holding her hand. "And the courage to admit our mistakes," she added softly, "so that our children can live in truth." The room hushed as Emily began to play. Max joined her at the piano, their 4 hands moving in perfect harmony. Bradley's lyrics, sung by a children's choir, filled the air with a message of hope and redemption. Ethan, ever the analyst, whispered to his mother, "The probability of all this working out so perfectly was astronomically small." "That's the thing about love," Sarah replied, watching her expanded family. "It defies all calculations." As the song reached its crescendo, photos of Eleanor appeared on the wall, a tribute to the woman who had sacrificed everything to bring truth to light. Her final gift had funded not just the cultural center, but a foundation dedicated to supporting children's artistic and scientific dreams. Victoria, who now helped manage the foundation, stood beside her son as he prepared to read his story to the crowd. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered, "for being braver than I ever was." The ceremony concluded with all 3 children at the piano, Emily playing, Bradley singing, and Ethan explaining the mathematical beauty of music to amazed parents. Max and Sarah watched, their hands clasped, as the family they had created defied all conventional definitions. "Eleanor was right," Max said softly. "Love does win." Sarah squeezed his hand, looking around at their beautiful, unconventional family. Victoria, organizing the foundation's next event, Bradley, inspiring children with his stories, the twins sharing their gifts with the world, and most importantly, truth and love replacing secrets and lies. Above them, Eleanor's portrait seemed to smile as golden sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the words inscribed below. "In honor of Eleanor Thompson, who taught us that family is not defined by blood, but by the courage to love truly and live honestly." The sound of children laughing, music playing, and stories being shared filled the air, a symphony of healing, hope, and new beginnings. The truth had finally set them all free, transforming a small bookstore into a sanctuary of love and learning, where every heart could find its home.